I think because things like RV life exist, there's so much just shared wisdom, I think, on the internet. Like our voices are becoming unavoidable for the industry. And I think that's a really good thing because I think listening to the customer is kind of how we all succeed.
Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Jim Nelson. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Freak out in a moon age daydream. Oh yeah. All right, I know. I promised I'd stop trying to sing on this show, but I really want to sing the praise of my guest today. I'm Jim from RV Life, and I'm excited to share my conversation with Henry from Moon Fabrications. Have you ever felt that freedom from sitting around the campfire under a full moon, sharing stories and good times with a tight-knit community of friends and fans? Well, that's what Henry and the team at Moon have done around the MoonShade. They've created a family feeling with their distributed workforce, working remotely to design, produce, market, and sell the most versatile vehicle awning. Moon has also created a rabid following of dedicated fans who spread the word for them throughout niche communities from van lifers to overlanders, and they're now making headway in the traditional RV market. You'll hear the Moon backstory and all about the products, as well as the challenges faced while launching in the post-pandemic era. And Henry shares how they gained incredible traction, experiencing exponential growth from the get-go, all attributed to developing a community of passionate users who do the marketing for them. How did they do it? They gave away a lot of moonshades. You definitely want to tune in here because we're giving one away too. Listen to the end and check the show notes for details about how you can get a MoonShade OG or XL model for your rig. Spoiler alert, we're going to make it pretty simple. Find out how in my discussion with Henry from Moon Fab right after this brief message. Attention all RV adventurers, elevate your mobile connectivity with the King Passport. This revolutionary device combines a multi-network cellular router and Wi-Fi booster, ensuring you stay connected no matter where you roam. With cutting-edge vSIM technology, the King Passport switches to the strongest signal from major network providers, delivering speeds up to 300 megabits. Plus, it supports up to 32 devices, making it perfect for families or remote workers. Enjoy versatile data plans tailored to meet your needs from King, a connectivity leader for over 2 decades. For more information, visit kingconnect.com. RVE podcast listeners can save 15% with code RVE2024 at checkout. And now, on with our discussion. Henry, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to our chat, and I'm really excited to talk about Moon Fab and the product you're developing there.
Yeah, man, I'm really happy to be here.
Cool. So, as you know, this is technically the RV Life Entrepreneur Podcast. I ask all my guests a couple quick questions first. And I wanted to ask you, how do you define the RV life? And what does that look like for you?
Okay, so I knew you were going to ask this. And the first thing I think of is when I was in junior high, I would take a piece of notebook paper, and on one side I would draw a school bus, and it would always have a really cool, like fire paint job and stuff like that. And then I would flip the piece of notebook paper over, and I would like draw an interior, like I would draw an RV. And I think as a kid, I traveled a lot as a kid. My dad didn't get to travel, so the benefit for me and my brother is that he showed us a lot of the world and just got really comfortable with being in foreign places. And so I think like junior high, high school is when I started dreaming of, in college, I drove school buses. I got obsessed with converting a van to run vegetable oil for a while. And then the first time I feel like I really felt the freedom of being on the road, and this is how I define, this is kind of, I think what you mean as RV life, I mean is this, which is like the first time I graduated from Texas A&M in 2009. And then a couple months later, I'd packed up everything I owned into my Honda CRV, and I moved to Seattle. And it was like the second or third day of that drive, I just had this like really true feeling of freedom, like that I had kind of, I was in control kind of my own life. And so I've kind of been chasing that feeling ever since. And that's mostly looked like my entrepreneurial journey, which I know we'll get into, but directly connected to RV life. I now run Moon Fabrications, and we make an awning that is modular and fits on any vehicle. And so, as a net result of that, you know, we're connected to thousands of different kind of vehicle communities and who are all centered in different ways. But I think most of us are just trying to do the same thing, which is get off the internet, you know, and feel sane. And that journey started in 2018 when my co-founder invented the MoonShade and then called me. And that's kind of how I ended up here.
Awesome. And we're going to get into all that. And you said a magic word there, freedom. When people ask me why I do what I do here and the travels that I've been doing for the last 17 years now, it's for the freedom. And the freedom speaks for itself with entrepreneurism too. So what does being an entrepreneur mean to you?
Well, again, Jim, I love the question. And I've had a lot of time to think about this because one of the hard lessons I've learned in the last couple of years is running a manufactured goods company kind of goes at a certain pace that you can't control. So I've just had a lot of time of waiting, of us fixing some problems that took a while. So I've just been asking myself, how did I get here? And the first paid thing I ever got to make was when I was a teenager. My youth pastor asked me to start the video team at my church. And so like a year or two went by, and a lady that was a member of the church asked me and a friend to film her daughter's like reception. And I got to tell you, we did a horrible job. Like it was a little better than a home video, but I think that is like when I learned the lesson that people are willing to pay you to make things with your friends. And so that's kind of where it started for me. And throughout my career, that's mostly looked like video making, mostly documentary filmmaking, and then grassroots marketing. And that is just kind of part of the way that happened was my friends and I started a campaign to raise money for clean water wells when I was in college. And then that became what I did for a living.
Awesome. It kind of sums up being an entrepreneur, kind of doing it all, following a cause, following a passion. But let's back up there for a minute. You talked about documentary filmmaking. So like, when did that begin, and what type of documentaries or what was your favorite accomplishment in that realm?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking that question. So I identified as called myself a filmmaker long before I would say I was like a documentary filmmaker. And that was, you know, I kind of grew up I'm old. I feel like I kind of got the dream scenario of growing up in this age of technology where I was still bored in the suburbs, you know, when I was a teenager. And when my friends and I made videos, we were making silly things that like 4 people were watching. We weren't thinking about it like being on the internet. And so, you know, that kind of carries over into college, and you're just kind of making more things with your friends. And so that's kind of where filmmaking started for me. And then because of the nonprofit work, I ended up doing a lot of kind of international travel and international filmmaking. And that kind of all ended up being documentary based. But I think the thing that I love most about documentary filmmaking is like it just gives you an excuse to walk into a place and be curious and open-minded. And you know, it's like a campfire conversation, right? It's like, why are you here? How did you end up here? What are we all doing here, you know? And so I would say I made a short film that was kind of like, I don't know if you ever saw there was like in the 2010s, there was a show called Friday Night Lights. It was like kind of a drama on NBC, but it's like kind of very Texas culture built around Texas high school football.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wrangled all my best filmmaking friends in Texas, and we made like what we were kind of calling the real version of Friday Night Lights. And that's a short film called Five Star, which is on Vimeo, but it features this kid who he was the number one strong safety recruit in the nation and was sort of getting hounded by all these big, universities. But that was, now he plays for the Broncos. So that was a while ago. And then I guess like that eventually led to the job I did right before we launched Moon, which was I was the co-showrunner on a doc series for ESPN and LeBron James production company, Spring Hill Entertainment. And I embedded with the college basketball team in Memphis. Penny Hardaway, NBA superstars, their coach. It's his alma mater. And so I moved to Memphis from Austin, where I lived in 2019, to make that show. And like a country song, met a girl and never left. COVID happened, then we launched Moon. So that's been a pretty wild ride.
It has already, and I do want to get into the MoonShade backstory, but real quickly there, you mentioned a lot of things that you probably translated from that life to your production life. I mean, you were making films, documentary films, filmmaking to manufacturing. What kind of, and I'm guessing during the filmmaking there was a lot of bootstrapping and juggling and doing all sorts of things.
Oh yeah,
the pitching, the sales, the production, all of it.
That's
kind of lessons might have you learned during your previous life that translated into production management and product management?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many lessons. I mean, I think in terms of the ways of storytelling and how it shapes, or just freelance film production, indie film production, I think you just identified one thing that I think is huge. That I think very few things worth doing you can do alone. I think that like the purest joy of making things with people is about collaboration. And I think something that you just have to learn in indie filmmaking when there's no budget is that, if you're not the best person to do the whatever the role on the crew is, you can probably find someone who's totally willing to do it, who's way better than you and will charge you a fair price. And I think that is, I think for anyone creating or running companies on the road, you have to sort of have that decentralized network and contractors you work with. And that's very much replicated in the way that we run Moon. And then, one of the things you learn as a filmmaker, I've done plenty of commercials, and, there's the commercial price and then there's like the independent film price, and it's the same quality work. And I think one of the ways you can get a lot out of any team in making anything is by genuinely like giving away ownership, and that can be in the way you manage people and giving them clear roles and responsibilities. But I think that's the big thing, I think, from just that world of just sort of giving away things I'm not good at. And then I think from like the storytelling aspect, I think the greatest gift of being a documentary filmmaker and having the privilege to get to do that is that you essentially just get to be curious and ask people whatever you want. And what that's taught me is that there's no such thing as a dumb question. And if you ask, people will probably tell you, and so a lot of what's informed, the way our sort of strategic approach with Moon is, showing up in places like Elkhart, Indiana, kind of the epicenter of the RV industry, and just like cold calling people, walking into their warehouses, and just asking them what's going on, and so I think that, and we do the same thing with our customer, I think the greatest benefit of how Moon has launched, and I know we'll get into kind of the details of it, but it's like, practically speaking, like we have to be good at customer service because the majority of our business is online. Right. And the gift of that is like when you really honor your customer, they tell you what they want. So every product innovation we've made with the MoonShade, customers have told us. every new thing they want to see. They've told like all of our unique selling propositions, all the things that, the ways that we market the Moonshade, it's all things customers have said first, and like, and that's been a core part, if you look at Moon's brand, maybe the last way my documentary filmmaking influences what we do is it's all for the most part real, like we use real customers as much as possible. We try to spend marketing dollars sort of within kind of the RV and nomad communities as much as possible. Like, we're trying to be as connected to this world as we can, because I do think that we're in a weird space, I think, with hard goods and RV, just the RV industry at large, where like there's never been more influence online. There's never like
Right.
the tastemakers and the people are shopping online. And I think we're now in this era where, all the manufacturers, us included, we now really have to listen to the customer to win. And I think that's a really good thing. But I think that's maybe one of the spaces where, just by the way Moon started, we're naturally tuned into that right now, and we feel like that's one of our huge advantages in this season.
You said quite a few things in there. I want to put pins in and dive in a little deeper, but let's take a look at that brand. So Moon Fab, give me a short backstory behind the MoonShade. What is it and how did it take shape?
Sure. So, my friend Matthew, one of my best friends, who I met, we actually worked at that clean water nonprofit together. He went to go work in tech, kind of did a classic, California story. He quit his job in tech, grew out his hair, started converting a van, and he has a PhD in behavioral economics. He's been a data researcher his whole life. And one of the things he was really trying to claim for himself as he was kind of building out his van in trying to live his life in the way that he wanted, is he wanted to be an inventor. Like, he had always used his research and his genius to support other ideas. So he really wanted to create something tactile. And so he was living, he lives in downtown San Francisco. And so he didn't want to put a fixed awning on the side of his van, and bought a sewing machine, started kind of prototyping this, like, what if we used a dome tent as an awning instead of a giant metal box? And, a lot of the original MoonShade all came from that original prototyping. It ended up being kind of, the design mandate was, could you make kind of a more durable, like, better awning and have it be easy to set up by one person? And so the original MoonShade is what we launched with, which it's 7 by 9 feet, and it packs down to the kind of the size of a camping chair, and it weighs 9 pounds. And, if you properly guy line it out, we think it does better in all weather. And then, obviously one of the main reasons people love the shade is because it's versatile. You're not fixed to one position on your vehicle. Depending on where the sun is, you can move it around. A lot of people use multiple MoonShades. And so that core MoonShade is really kind of how we're here. And then about a year and a half ago, we launched the MoonShade XL, which is essentially us going, what is the biggest version of this sort of same form that we've created with the MoonShade that, again, is sort of not impossible to set up with one person, although we definitely recommend two. And that's the MoonShade XL, which is 9 by 12,
Wow.
and has the same construction as the MoonShade.
So it sounds like there's not like brackets required. You're not permanently affixing this thing. It sounds magnetic. Does it not? Does
So
it
there's
work
carabiners.
on?
So yeah. So I mean, the thing that gives us the most trouble, just full openness, is textured fiberglass.
Hmm.
But basically everything else we're good to go on. And so when we launched the MoonShade, so the way the MoonShade attaches to something is, important to understand, which is in every corner of the MoonShade, there's a there's a carabiner, and essentially that carabiner clips in. What it needs to anchor into is about a 1/2 inch eyelet, if you want to kind of think about it that way.
Okay.
And so our anchoring system is, when we launched the MoonShade with suction cup anchors. So essentially suction cups with an eyelet, and then magnet anchors with an eyelet. And what immediately started happening was different vehicle communities started asking us for custom anchors. And so like the Airstream Base Camp community was the most organized and loudest. And so we pretty quickly made like a 1/2 inch key to rail anchor for them. And then we made a 3/8 key to rail anchor. So now we have a bunch of anchors. And in the last couple of years, we've been trying to figure out just what are the most bulletproof solutions and how do we educate customers as effectively as we can. And so, the reality is you can install a MoonShade in endless ways. And so, one of the things that we're excited about is on our website, moonfab.com, in January, we're launching a new version of the website where you'll be able to search by vehicle type, anchor type. And the coolest thing about it is all the product pages are filled with actual content from our customers.
Awesome.
So it's all real use cases. It's all real people. And, we wanted to solve that problem for helping people understand, trying to sell something online simply can be complicated when it's modular. So that's one side of it. And then the other part of it is, we got introduced to sort of vacuum mounted suction cups, in about the last year. And, vacuum mounted suction cups, they're a more premium product. There's like $100 add-on right now for us on our website, but, those things are pretty bulletproof. They kind of stick to whatever. And if you set up a MoonShade with vacuum mounted cups, it's going to work on almost anything if you sort of have the roof space or the wall space.
Yeah, that's awesome. I got an idea of how it works, and I'm curious about those customers. Who's the target user? Paint me a picture of like a perfect use scenario for these things.
I think the hierarchy that we follow is like I think we want people to use it in as weird ways as possible. We just had a customer send us using the MoonShade on a sailboat. And we were like, yeah, all right, rad, like a sailboat. But the MoonShade was originally designed for a short 4x4 sprinter. And so it has telescoping support poles, and, it can work with like a pretty high roof clearance. We definitely see a lot of truck and SUV owners just because the dome shape, teardrop trailer owners, like the dome shape kind of allows more headroom. We're seeing more and more truck campers. The thing that we have tried to accomplish from the jump with Moon is that we understand that not everybody knows what a vehicle awning is. And we don't think everybody needs the best vehicle awning in the world. Not everyone needs to buy a MoonShade. And so the way we launched, I think, is a good sort of answer to your question of who's our target user, which is like, the way we have grown is by sending these awnings to the super users, creators, tastemakers, publications. I think that there's no way around the fact that like we're here because the product is great, and I think the thing that we've done an effective job of is just like saying yes to people that want to try out the shade for a way that we've never seen it before.
I'm going to drop a tease right here, right now. Listeners, please listen to the end, because we're going to have some very special offer, because Henry just told me something about he's looking for ways people might be using this thing differently. So keep that in mind as we go through this episode, and get ready to share with us how you might use a MoonShade. And spoiler alert, you might just get one. So Henry, tell me about the name Moon Fabrications. Where'd that come from, and why Moon?
Man, so Matthew named Moon. So I'm not going to like be able to do this justice, but I do think that a lot of where Matthew was when he created Moon was trying to sort of create more natural rhythm in his own life where he was more in tune with the season. I think more in tune with kind of like the shape of the moon and what's happening in the, like, just being
Sure.
dictated by the pace of nature versus, I think like the digital world.
Sure.
But man, I don't have a good answer. I wish I had a better answer for for that question. I just, when I started working with Matthew on Moon, I wasn't a co-founder. He originally hired me as a contractor and made me a co-founder later. So I've never second guessed it. Moon was always my best friend's thing, and here we are. And sorry that I don't have a better answer for the
No, I
question.
got it, and I can kind of see where he's going with that because you get in tune with the phases of the moon out there on the road, and that's some of the best times you get your best ideas, and it's where you feel most at home. But tell me about your like launch, and you were talking about like a post-COVID thing. I understand you grew pretty fast. You kind of mentioned that earlier.
That's
How
true.
did you launch and ramp up a business in the pandemic era? What was the main challenges you
Oh man.
faced?
I mean, the short version is it was a dream and then it was a nightmare.
Sure.
And it feels like in the last year we've kind of been waking up to reality. Um, but yeah, just I guess from a high level, the plan with Moon was to always launch the product on Kickstarter at the end of 2019 with a goal of launching the website in the spring of 2020. So the plan was
Ouch.
always to launch direct to consumer April 2020. And so, and yeah, I think that like we had no concept. We thought the MoonShade was such an obviously like smart design. We thought surely someone else had done this before and failed. Like there's a reason, like that's the fear, right? Is that you're going to put 3 years of developing something into launching it, and you're like, why doesn't this exist? And it turns out why it didn't exist is just because no one had done it. And so what happened was the way we launched our Kickstarter is we sent the MoonShade to 4 different van life YouTubers, and that was our entire marketing campaign for the Kickstarter. They did that. We realized that like that was an effective way to sort of connect with the on the road world. And so we went into our launch in April of 2020 making different deals with these same YouTubers. And man, that is like that it put us on kind of the, I don't know, it felt like it gave us a jet ski on the COVID wave because yeah, we were in March of 2020. We had produced 2,000 units. We had basically spent all the money. Matthew had worked. He was an early worked at Airbnb and Robinhood, and definitely had created a really nice life for himself, but not like living on a yacht nice. This was like a
Mm-hmm.
little side project, but we had spent all the money and we had these awnings. And March of 2020, it was like all of a sudden this little art project that we had was like what we were relying on to work, and had no idea how it was going to go. But we had 2,000 on. We had 1,000 awnings in inventory, and we had another 1,000 on the way. And we were like, okay, if we sell through all of these awnings, we'll be able to we'll be able to pay ourselves a little bit of money. And we sold out, put the MoonShades online in April, and in the first weekend, we sold more than we did on the Kickstarter. And then we sold out of all of those awnings in the first 3 months. And so it just went from this, like, is this going to work, to from when we launched April 2020 to the end of 2021, we doubled in size both years, and we were on back order 50% of the time. So we were out of stock 50% of the time. People were ordering on back order. So, in 2021, like a lot of other companies in our space, like we just thought we were God's gift to vehicle awnings. You know what I mean? Like we just thought we were geniuses. And the thing that we had no clue what we were doing, as a data researcher and a filmmaker, is like how to run a manufactured goods company. And so we did the same thing we had been doing the whole time in those first 2 years, which is spend all of our cash on awnings. And so we ordered a massive amount of MoonShades going into 2022. And in June of 2022 was when we realized, like, I feel like the COVID wave, it's been receding, but
Mm-hmm.
for us, we were in like a little kayak. And so as soon as it started kind of pulling back, we felt it. And I think for these bigger ships, it's taken a little longer, but
Okay.
basically from June of 2022 until earlier this year, it just was sort of really hoping we could sell through all of these awnings, because we had various things that we were going to have to pay off. And
Sure.
but like I said, we've kind of woken up from it all and are feeling really good about where we are today.
Searching for the perfect campground can be overwhelming, but not with RV Life Campgrounds. With user-generated reviews, RV-specific data, and real-world internet speed tests, you'll have all the information you need to find your ideal spot. Don't leave your camping experience to chance. Trust the experts at RV Life. Visit campgrounds.rvlife.com to start your search.
Go back to the beginning for a minute there. That kind of like launch
Sure.
and exponential growth and selling out are the things that everyone
Sure.
wants to do. What do you attribute it to? I mean, what kind of pre-legwork did you do, aside from the Kickstarter, to get those numbers of sales?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question. So I mean, I think that we had the luxury with how Matthew started Moon, where it was really coming from this place of, like, it was an art project. It really was like kind of a dream. And, we were just going to be successful if we launched it on it. And so the two things we spent a lot of time doing the first 2 years was developing the product, and then just getting connected to the community as much as we could. So Matthew started driving to Overland Expo and going to different events. The first kind of like nomad event I went to was Open Roads Fest in 2019, put on by Barefoot Theory, which was awesome. And we just started like connecting with as many people as we could who were just actually living on the road. And it was at Open Roads Fest when we connected with Mr. and Mrs. Adventure, who are YouTubers. And that's when we were like, oh, there's a bunch of people living on the road on YouTube. And, that was kind of the era. That was when it was still pure, that's like when it was still, no one knew what it was going to be. And so, it was these couples in love who had decided to travel the world and make videos. And so I think that's really what we learned. I mean, that is the thing that was just right in our face the whole time from when we launched Moon, is that the way that this world works, the way that this RV life on the road community works, is it's very connected online. It's a really cool and rare example of how online community supports offline experience. It allows you to stay connected with people that you see at different campsites and along the road. You get to learn from people. You're like, oh, this person always gives the best, like they always know the best spots. It creates this really sort of organic way of talking with each other. And so we've really framed kind of all of our effort from a marketing standpoint as Moon as connecting with as many of these different vehicle communities as we can. And I think that that's what helps us stay rooted. And that would be, if anyone is in a position of wanting to launch a product or service, I think in the RV industry, I think that really, man, like people do their research and they talk on the internet. And the easiest way to sort of break it down, although it's really complicated, is people typically organize around vehicle type. They're in different forums around that. But I think just knowing that helps. We try to think about our marketing as not like how many thousands of Instagram followers do we have or how many people are we emailing. And it's more like, who are the 100, 200 people we know that, carry our reputation for us in these spaces that we can't be directly connected to.
So how do you do that? What comes to mind, Peter Shankman's book, Zombie Loyalists. Like, you have a ravenous, close-knit crowd that then spreads the word for you. How do you grow a dedicated fan base, or how did you, within that van life and overlanding crowd with a product that was brand new and they hadn't heard of before?
I mean, a lot of free awnings
Okay.
was how it started. It was like if people asked, we sent one was kind of how it worked. And then, I think a lot of it is, I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube. And so I think that I mean, I still do. I will regularly just cold pitch a YouTuber and say, hey, I run this awning company. Do you want to try this out? And so it's a lot of that. And then, we owe a lot of the credit of the way how rooted we've been in this space by the nomads that we've hired and worked with. And so a couple of the people that come to mind are Adam and Brittany Fenimore. They're the couple in most of our kind of how-to tutorial videos. They're currently off the road in Boise, but they had sold everything right before COVID. A lot of the people we initially connected to were these group of nomads that had all launched right before COVID. So then they were in the weird era where everything was shut down and they were really having to so they were really trying to like survive, and yeah, connected with the Fenimores. They started making content for us. And then knowing that we wanted to be connected in the community going into 2021, we essentially worked out a contract with them where they were representing us at events and kind of just being our physical representation kind of in the space. And then that would open up just organic collaborations and connections. And I would say because we thought there was no end to our success in 2020 and 2021, we were just saying yes to every integration, every content idea. We were just, if it was with someone who was living on the road, who we felt, was trying to find meaning in the same things we were saying yes. And then in the last couple of years, that's where you can find it on our website right now. If you kind of poke around, it's under moonfab.com/community. But the Moon Vehicle Expert Program is the way that we have sort of systematized this reality of being connected to so many different vehicle communities, and the way that, and all of the experts who have already jumped on have been really patient with us, because the new website is a big part of this, because part of what we're trying to build in is, if someone buys the MoonShade from your expert page, you're going to get like a little commission off of that, basically, to try to just create a fair and equitable system. But that's really, the Moon Vehicle Expert thing has been something we've just been testing and kind of figuring out this year. And it's the way that we're just sort of generating all of our sort of marketing content is through experts. And this platform will kind of allow us to build on top of that even further. So, because we want to get really custom with different people and be able to, but we kind of have to create a mechanism where like there's a thing that kind of everybody can be involved. This is something you just learn. This is something that I learned running that grassroots marketing campaign, is the 80-20 principle. I just have always seen to be true, which is like 20% of the people are going to generate 80% of the value, and 80% of the people are going to generate 20% of the value. But the thing about the whole ecosystem is that 80% generating 20% of the value, they're still generating value. They're still a part of what you're doing. And so that's kind of where we're going. Like, we've been building out this program, and as we sort of solidify it, I think we'll start doing more and more sort of custom kind of one-off collaborations with different people we're already connected to.
That's awesome. But how do you it sounds as though you need to be a little more selective than you used to be when choosing the partners you're working for. With so many content creators out there, what do you look at in an influencer? I mean, what are you looking for? Is it pure numbers, pure followers, or long form written content? Like, we've done some deals where we don't nearly have the numbers of followers, but we get some good deals because of people seeing the value in the long form written content. So when you need to be a little bit more selective and stop throwing awnings out the window, how do you select them? What are you looking for when someone works with you?
Yeah, for sure. And so I think that what's cool about what we've created within just the Moon world, and I think because of so many of the great creators and people that we've connected with, like, people like working with us. So we sort of have an endless inbound list of people pitching us. And so,
Mm-hmm.
that makes it really easy, I think. But so this is like a little, we get to do this now, but like, we don't care about we don't care about size of audience. We care about, um, you know, is this a vehicle type that we don't have? What's the quality of their content? And then, yeah, like, who are they? Like, what are they? Are they a mom? Are they a single mom? Are they a gamer? You know, are they a retired couple? Like, I think that we really want to like showcase there's no wrong way to sort of spend time on the road. And that's kind of been our guide. And then again, I think the new website that we're rolling out will sort of like allow us to both scale that and kind of open it up to more people, but also help us target the people that are getting the most page views. I think if I were starting today, man, I think one of the hardest things for me to see as a grassroots marketer in the last 5 years is the way that working with YouTubers has evolved. Because when we started, when I was pitching some names, I'm sure your audience will know: Eamon and Beck, Trent and Alley, Mr. and Mrs. Adventure, the Matneys. Like, I was talking to them directly. Like, I was texting with them. Trent and Alley, we've stayed super connected to. I say I love you to them. We really collaborated with these people, and it was really cool to share our awning with them and for them to be the first people to get to try it, because they really loved it. Like, none of them had awnings. It was this general, they didn't have awnings for a lot of the reason that Matthew didn't like attached awnings. And it was this really organic, like, easy way to connect. And because of COVID and because so much ad spend has started going to YouTube, you've had all of these agencies pop up, and now we're just in this game of, and I totally get it. If you're from I'm a documentary filmmaker. Like, I get it. If you're a content creator, part of the game is, how do you get people to pay you more for the talent and skill and expertise that you're bringing to that 30-second reel that you're making? I get that. But yeah, I think that it's tough now, because I think about this all the time, that the way, like, I don't think any of these things that happened with Moon would have happened without Van Life YouTube. And I don't think that we could connect with them in the same way today that we did a number of years ago. I do think if I were a product creator, or this is my best advice for someone who is starting something today, is I do think that creators, I think YouTubers in general, especially ones that have larger audiences, they're getting sick of the algorithm game of just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And they're looking to diversify their creative voice, expertise, and talent. And that's what I would find. I would reach out to the 5 to 10 YouTubers that you would love to represent your product or service, and say, hey, I made this thing. I love your content. Here's why. Be as human as possible. And say, would you be open to doing multiple integrations for a small amount of ownership in my company, or some type of scaled, I do think YouTubers are feeling the same thing I am. And I think people are looking for a way to do it. That's my best advice in terms of like launching a product. But I do think you have to get it in the hands of people that are experts. And I would also just try to focus on one community. Like, if you're in a truck camper, like, reach your community first. Like, and don't forget that, like, even though all of these communities are online, they are all meeting offline. Almost all of them have an annual meetup, or they're just seeing each other on the road, and really genuinely being, again, like, I've been kind of based here in Memphis. I feel like I'm running an RV video game from my computer sometimes, but we're very connected physically to these spaces, and we try to show up in them as much as possible. And that's what's really hard about launching something right now.
But it's brilliant how you're reaching those communities and addressing these niches, the van lifers, the overlanders, etc. What kind of challenges do you think you're going to face when penetrating the traditional RV market?
Um, well, see, I've been spending time in Elkhart for a couple of years, and so I do think we are penetrating the RV market. I think the barrier, Elkhart's a pretty tiny town. Like I think that the RV industry operates kind of like the place that it predominantly exists in, which is like everybody kind of knows everybody, and there's kind of a way of doing things. But there are a ton of innovators, and there are a ton of really amazing creators with vision. And so we've had the luxury, because our 90% of our business is direct to consumer. We've kind of had our time. I've gotten to kind of do my documentary filmmaking hat and just go to Elkhart and just kind of be like, hey, like, how do we show up here? And the big breakthrough for us has been this year. We're on 2 RVs underneath the Cherokee line for Forest River, which by volume, is one of the biggest RV lines. And so I think the fact that we've been able to kind of deliver for those guys is definitely opened up a lot of conversations for us. And that's we're just in the beginning of kind of like pitching it. I'll be in Elkhart next week meeting with manufacturers about the 26 model year.
Fantastic. That's great. And it sounds like when you say I and we, you've got more or less a remote workforce, right? You've got a distributed team. How big is the team, and how do you find good remote help? What do you look for?
Man, that's a great question. Yeah. So we launched during COVID, so we've been remote from the jump.
Right.
And and the dream was that we would get to, spend as much time. My preferred way of being off the grid is in the middle of nowhere around a campfire with people I love. That's just like my dream scenario. And we do have an event that we put on every year called Moon Landing that happens in October. It's in Rama, New Mexico on 700 acres. So we do that. I don't know if I would start moon landing again in hindsight, based off of what I mentioned earlier about moon being a nightmare. But, our team has ebbed and flowed. But yeah, today, we've kind of been always between 5 and 10 people is kind of been the way that it works. And then, I'm in Memphis. We have a CX person in North Carolina. They were on the road when they first started working with us. Our head of our product, he's currently, overstayed his 14 days in Sedona in his box truck. And so we'll see if he gets kicked off where he currently is. And then, I just have, just relationships kind of in all these places, the Overland Expo world, the Elkhart world. We have a distribution partner that we're about to start working with in Elkhart. But it just, it's kind of been, at one point we had like 8 full-time people, and then it like went down to 2. So it just has been this like kind of crazy thing. I think in terms of finding dedicated people, Moon's been a pretty wild ride the whole time. Like we've kind of been like, we were behind essentially. We had underplanned for our launch essentially once we had launched, and then we were way behind, and then we were way ahead. So like, it's kind of always been juggling people, but we've hired a lot. Like the first couple people we hired, they all asked for free moonshades, and then we connected with them that way. And then like Eric, who is our head of product, we met camping in Joshua Tree and just kind of out there. And so there's been kind of no rhyme or reason. I think the greatest gift of going after something you actually care about, like if you want to, like, that's the coolest thing about Moon, is that we really love this awning. Like we made it for ourselves. We think it's awesome. It's a tarp on steroids. Don't overthink it. But like it is everything you want it to be. And the cool thing about doing that is that even if some people think it's stupid, which we hear plenty of people in our ads mentioning that, like, like people see what you're doing and they kind of come to you, like kind of like, I think the people that get what you're going for, because inevitably, if you are in the early stage of starting something or in any cycle of entrepreneurship, you're always trying to live into like whatever the dream is or whatever you believe you're moving into. And I think finding the right aligned team, it's about, you have to remember that there's so many skilled, talented people out there. Like you really got to find people who connect with what you're trying to do and have that hunger and initiative where they're going to be fully responsible for. They have to love what they're doing, and what, and we're evolving the way we do that as a company. Like for example, on the new MoonShade that we're working on, all of the product, everyone designing the product is going to get a royalty in perpetuity on that product. Nice. And again, that's just like a way for us to sort of create shared ownership and like try to like seeing so many product companies when they start reaching our size, just like make frankly bullshit stuff and just because they can sell it. And so it's like the way you can actually make it cool is if you really allow other people to care about it too. And so that's what we try to follow. I think, we want hungry people more than we want experienced people most of the time.
Yeah, good on you in doing that, because it comes back to that whole sense of community, both in your customer base and in-house. I mean, you guys are a family, and when you get that thing and everyone behind the product and the people involved, you're going to see success. So talk to me a minute about the manufacturing from afar. You can't walk out to the production floor and do certain things, or walk into the other guy's cubicle and say, hey, tweak this. Earlier on, you mentioned certain problems at or during launch. You alluded to some certain challenges you faced. What were those and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the highest level, when we started, again, using my sort of film producer hat, I knew enough to like know how to get a product made, but we did that through a manufacturing rep. And so the way I ended up, the reason Matthew called me about the MoonShade was at the time I was consulting a lightweight trailer manufacturer based in Houston called Taxa Outdoors. And that was when I was first getting introduced to Elkhart as well. But they had hired me because I come from the world of outdoor retail and, the Patagonias, North Faces of the world. And so essentially everything in outdoor retail is produced overseas. And so that was the lens that just like kind of that's what we knew when we started. And so through a company called Peak Design in San Francisco, we got connected to essentially someone who could take our tech pack and turn it into a product and kind of be our middleman with production. And I wouldn't do that again. I think if I could do it over, I would do what we have now, which is we still produce overseas, but we're way more connected with our suppliers, and we've done that through one of our members of our product team who actually used to be one of the heads of R&D for Patagonia, and now he's working with us. So he kind of brought all of his relationships from that world for us, and now just we do feel like we have an extremely collaborative relationship with all the people that we're developing products with. And then we are beginning to develop products that this probably won't be next year, but we are beginning to develop other products that help people extend their outdoor space, which aren't awnings. And a lot of that sort of R&D we're actually doing in Elkhart. So
sweet.
We're, I think we feel pretty agnostic to where we produce. I think it's kind of, again, it's that same question of who you work with. You want to find people that you trust. And if you have a product idea and you want to produce it at scale, find someone that can be an equity partner in your business, even as an advisor who's just done it before. Because there were so many things that we could have avoided by just owning our production from the beginning and not having a manufacturing rep.
And it sounds like, planning, it really comes into play there.
The original business plan for Moon was like, let's build an audience online. Let's sell this to people who really need an awning. Make sure they want it. And then maybe we can start selling to Elkhart. That's kind of been the high level plan. So all that to say, I wish it were a lot more specific. I would have saved myself a lot of stress and apologizing to people for not being able to afford their bills for a while, but you live and learn.
So it sounds like you got a great team. You got a wonderful product. What's next for Moon?
Whew, it feels like a lot is about to happen, Jim. But, the things that I'm really excited about are our new website, which should be launching in January, which is going to really kind of center a lot of who we are just in Moon experts and people we're connected to. And I think we're about to talk about this, but, we still give away a lot of moonshades. So if you are interested, we're always looking for unique ways for people to set up a moonshade. We'll get into that in a second, but the big things for us next year is we're launching another version, sort of our next iteration of the moonshade, which we're calling the MoonShade Pro. So the current moonshade 7x9, the XL is 9x12. We're kind of doing a Goldilocks situation. So this one will be 9x9. And then the big sort of innovation on top of it is it'll have the ability, so for a fully enclosed room, which kind of has a modular bug net option. So yeah, we're pretty stoked on that. We'll be kickstarting the MoonShade Pro early part of next year, I think also in January. And then, it feels like we're going to be spending a lot more time in Elkhart, and a lot of my energy is working more and more directly with OEMs. I think that, I think for any person who's a part of the RV community, I gotta say, like, as someone who's been an outsider, someone who's kind of gone from an outsider to an insider, I think in Elkhart, I'm really excited for what's happening in the industry. And I think that, I think because things like RV life exist, and because there's so much just shared wisdom, I think, on the internet for people on the road, I think it's just like our voices are becoming unavoidable for the industry. And I think that's a really good thing, because I think listening to the customer is kind of how we all succeed. And so got some new products, and just going to kind of launch further into this kind of road we're on, man. So should be fun. Could be crazy. I'll keep you posted.
Enjoy the ride. I have total faith that this thing's going to go far and you're going to be successful and love it. Let's give one of those moonshades away and make it simple. What do you have to offer our listeners here?
All right. Well, I'm feeling generous, man. So I think we should give away a MoonShade OG, which is the 7x9 feet. And I feel like we should also give away an XL, which is the 9x12. Or maybe, if maybe the way we do it is the person can decide who posts.
Let's do that.
So however you want to run it,
So listeners, check the show notes and check us out in the Facebook group. We're going to make this really simple for you. Basically, if you reach out and show us how you're going to use your moonshade and which one you want, and tell us the kind of vehicle you have, share a photo or something, and tag at Moon Fab. Is it at Moon?
I think it's, unfortunately, our Instagram handle is, I think it's Moon_Fabrications. I apologize in advance. We had no idea how big this thing was going to be.
No need to apologize there. If you tag the RV Entrepreneur or RV Entrepreneur on Instagram, email us, send up a smoke signal, get us a photo somehow and tell us how you're going to use this thing, and we're going to give you one. Henry, thanks so much. If you got nothing else to share with us, I'm going to wish you the best.
Man, thanks for your time, man. Really, really fun to share our story.
Many thanks to Moon Fab. You did catch that part about winning a free awning, right? We're making that super simple. Heck, it's no contest. Just tell us which model you want and how you use it. I love how Henry is reaching out to folks to find out the different ways they're using Moon products to make the most of their outdoor adventures. Smart marketing, really. So, let's see you stump him. I also want to see the clever ways contestants reach out. Did I say it's not a contest? Whatever. We are going to pick a random winner, but you can enter any way you want. Post on Facebook or Instagram, share a reel, shoot a short. Heck, reach out at the rventrepreneur.com or send up a smoke signal. If posting on Facebook, tag and message the RV Entrepreneur. On Instagram, we're at RV Entrepreneur. The more creative you get, the more chance you may have. No cost to enter. Shipping to lower 48 states only. One random winner to be selected by December 31st, 2024. Your likeness and content subject to use without license by Moon Fabrication and RV Life. So, get those entries in. And please let us know if you have any questions. Have happy travels, and remember,
the gift of that is like when you really honor your customer, they tell you what they want.
Your RV adventures are worth sharing. With an RV Life profile, you can connect with a community of RV enthusiasts, engage in meaningful conversations, and inspire others on their journey. It's not just about where you go, it's about the memories you make and the people you meet along the way. Start sharing your unique RV experiences at rvlife.com.